How's it going today, everybody? This is Chris and Rob Game Room, here to talk to you about ramping basic action cards that can also help you with managing your bag in what we're calling Brewers Theory, good, better, best. In this video, we'll be going over Villainous Pact, Create Food and Water, and Resurrection, respectively.
Villainous Pact. The action is your opponent chooses one non-villain character die. All other non-villain character dice cannot block this turn. The global ability is pay a mask once per turn during your turn. If you have no dice in your prep area, you may draw a die and place it in your prep area.
Create Food and Water. The action says draw dice from your bag until you draw a non-NPC die or your bag is empty. Prep all dice drawn this way. And then the global says once per turn, pay a generic energy, draw a die from your bag, return it to your bag or add it to your use pile. Resurrection. The action says roll a die in your use pile and place it into your reserve pool.
The global says pay a shield once per turn on your turn. Draw a die from your bag and prep it. In this scenario, we're going to go through Chris's turn 1 and turn 2 to highlight the effectiveness of Villainous Pact Global. For this instance, we're going to remove the rolls and say that Chris rolled his optimum rolls. So first we're going to start off with his turn 1, which he rolled 3 energy, one of which is a mask energy. He will use those 3 to purchase a mimic. On his turn 2, he rolls the 4 dice, giving him enough energy to purchase the Jubilee first. Use one of the masks to EXG a sidekick die from his use pile to the field zone. Then he uses his last mask to activate the Villainous Pact Global, which gives him the ability to draw and prep a die, meaning that he will have use of all 5 dice. That way, on his third turn, he can roll up all 5 and potentially have enough energy to field both of his characters, and giving him a significant advantage in the rest of the game. In this scenario, we're going to highlight the effectiveness of Create Food and Water's Global. It is now turn 6, and Chris, through botched rolls as well as various combat, has found himself upside down on his bag. With his current roll, which is in the reserve pool, he will use the 2 energy from the to field Jubilee. Then he will use his shield to activate Create Food and Water. In this instance, we're going to forgo the random draw. Assume it's his sidekick that goes straight to his use pile. Then he uses the mask to activate Professor X's Global, grabbing that sidekick out of the use pile and into the field zone, triggering his mimic, which copied an earlier sidekick. Now Chris has 4 in the bag and 2 in his prep area, giving him the opportunity to roll the 6 dice with enough energy to possibly purchase and field whatever he has in his prep area with the momentum. Thus, he is back in the game. Now let's revisit the first scenario, only this time we have the Resurrection Global instead of the Villainous Pact Global, which is less restrictive. So we see here that Chris is going to use the 3 to purchase a mimic. On his second turn, with the 4 he rolls, he will now purchase a Jubilee, then use the mask for Professor X Global, giving him a sidekick out of the used pile. Then he's going to use his shield and activate Resurrection Global, drawing and prepping a die. It should be noted as well that this is less restrictive than Villainous Pact in that in subsequent turns, Should you have an extra shield, you can always draw and prep a die and have that added ramp. Do so carefully, as bag management is important and sometimes more important than ramping. Now let's revisit scenario 2 with resurrection instead of create food and water global. Here, Chris is going to use the blob to field Jubilee. Then, instead of picking a sidekick and putting him into the used pile from his bag, he's going to use the shield resurrection. Now, assuming his mimic character, doesn't get picked off during his turn or his opponent's turn before his opponent passes priority to him, he can, on his opponent's turn, use the mask to Professor X Global the sidekick that he has in his used pile, thus giving him the ramp from mimic. Now, instead of 6 dice, he has 7 to draw and roll on his next turn, giving him the ability to purchase Mr. Fix and possibly field it, or using some variation of momentum shenanigans. Thus, Resurrection is the best option to both Villainous Pact as well as Create Food and Water. In conclusion, all 3 global abilities are great to have on your team for ramp and bag management. It all depends on what you brew with. For example, if you want to run an all-villains team, then Villainous Pact is your best way to go. If your team requires you to have sidekicks in your use, then you can run Create Food and Water to get there. However, if you're just looking for raw ramp and bag management, then Resurrection is a good way to go.